Hey everybody, I'm Stuart from Dartmouth Films with my colleague Paul Butler here, and today we're doing a talk that we do for schools, universities, colleges about how we made our two feature films and we sold them for distribution afterwards. We thought this would be something useful that other first-time filmmakers who were thinking about making a first feature film would be interested in watching. Hopefully it helps you. This is what we did. There's many ways you can get into the industry, many ways you can kind of make your film and sell it. This will hopefully be useful for some of you out there. So Paul and I formed Dartmouth Films in 2015. We'd previously been working with a film and animation company called Glass Cannon, doing a lot of commercial projects, a lot of historical based films. But with Dartmouth Films, we kind of went in with the sole intention of making horror feature films. We both love horror movies. We wanted to be able to go and buy our horror films in shops and share our crazy ideas with the world. And that's essentially why we got into it. So we've made two feature films so far. The Creature Below was our first film in 2016, and then Book of Monsters was our second film, which came out in 2018-19. Both of them got distribution, available on DVD, VOD, Blu-ray, and various places, which is fantastic. So Paul and I both studied film and television production at university, but once we'd left university, we kind of both decided, look, we want to both make horror films, specifically. We want to make feature films, and we kind of needed to come up with a plan for how we were going to get into that.
For us, for the first film, it was mostly about getting the exposure and getting our film out there. We had this far off dream that we wanted to be able to go into HMV and see our DVD on the shelf, and we could literally pick it up and buy it. Thankfully, we actually achieved that, which was a massive a massive boom for us and really exciting. But it was important for us to understand, okay, well, that's our goal, and this is going to be the limitations that we have to put in place. We both have mortgages and commitments which require financing, so we couldn't really quit our day job. So everything that you're about to see about our journey all took place in evenings and weekends and time off work. But hopefully this process shows that even under those limitations, it's still possible to achieve your goals.
So there's kind of three main things we had to consider and that we would advise anyone considers when they're making their first kind of low budget feature film. And those are, is it marketable? Is it achievable? And what's the budget going to be? Can you even achieve that budget? Marketability is such a huge factor, and that's one of the biggest things that will get your film seen. What makes you feel marketable? Well, there's three kind of key things that we've found: poster, the trailer, and the log line. Now you'll see there the original poster we did, we actually got a photographer on board who's Alex Woodcock, who's actually our behind the scenes photographer on all our films since. We got him on board, and we got a model, Steph Mossman, on board to make kind of a poster that got across the tone and style of the film. And you'll see it was originally called The Dark Below. The name did eventually change when we sold the film for various reasons we'll go into. But what that poster did for us is we sent out to a few horror websites like Dread Central, Blood and Disgusting, before we actually started shooting the film, with kind of an announcement with the log line there saying, hey, we're making this film entering production this year. And we got loads of emails from distributors saying, hey, when can we watch the film? Sounds interesting. Are you looking to sell it? We hadn't even made the film yet, but that showed the power of a poster. We went in a bit too early. We weren't ready, but it kind of we went, oh, that's marketing.
Yeah, it allowed us as well to kind of test the fan base. And because this was our first feature film, it gave us the confidence to think, yeah, there is a market for this and people do want to see this film. Going back in a way, I do think we went a little too early. We changed our tactic a little bit with Book of Monsters, but at least we knew we were on the right track. And then the next stage to that, which kind of comes once you've shot the film in some respects, but is the trailer. However, we were thinking about the trailer during the scripting process, which may seem a little bit backwards, but because marketing and exposure was such a key element to this overall project, we would actually think about what we would put in the script in relation to what would make an interesting trailer. What kind of creating for a trailer allows you to do is really hone down where are the interesting parts of your script, where are the interesting ideas within the story, and how can you best put your money onto that? Because ultimately, people will only end up watching your film if you have an exciting trailer and if you have an exciting poster. Scripting for a trailer is actually quite a smart way to do that.
Yeah, and you'll see that if you watch the trailer. There's like a whole sequence where Olive is kind of rocking the baby to sleep in her arms, singing kind of an old sea shanty. And that was an idea we came up with, would be amazing for a trailer. So we wrote that into the film so we could have it in the trailer. And that might seem backwards, but again, as Paul said, think about when you're browsing Netflix and Amazon and things like that. You're scrolling down, you see that key art or the poster image there. You read the little log line, which for us was a young scientist discovers a malevolent entity which sets her on a bloody descent into the jaws of insanity. You will then watch the trailer, which kind of auto plays on Netflix. And if you nail all three of those things, people will watch the film. And this is something that will be very useful to you when you start talking to sales agents and distributors once you've finished the film, because these are the three key elements that they will really look at. And if you haven't got them up to spec, they will create their own, and it might differ from your artistic vision, but we'll get onto that because that kind of did happen to us as well. So after marketability, the second thing you have to consider is your budget. Now, with Creature Below, Paul and I, again, both having 9-to-5 day jobs, allowed us to save up a bit of money, and we essentially put £6,000 each towards the budget. So we knew, okay, we could make whatever we're going to make, it has to be made with £12,000. Our advice, at least it worked for us, with your first feature film, self-financing, thinking back to our original goal, we want to be able to see this film in HMV. Making money wasn't really a goal for us. If it is for you, then you really need to consider how much you're going to put in, because it is rolling the dice. You are gambling with that money. You could also do Kickstarter crowdfunding. I would say not yet for your first film, and I'll go into the reasons why when we talk about Book of Monsters, which we did crowdfund. You can also look at private investment. You could look at getting family members involved. You could look at getting local business owners involved. Again, for us, we wanted all of the risks to be on us, because we weren't willing to ask anyone for our money because we were unproven at this stage. And so will you be, despite how many short films you've made and things like that. Asking people for their money on a feature film, which you've never sold one before, you've never made one before, is a big ask.
There's a lot of lessons that you're unaware of going in. And thankfully, we knew enough not to gamble other people's money. Only really back your film as much as you can afford to lose, I would suggest, certainly for the first one. And then hopefully you've learned your lessons and you can go bigger on the second. Having said that, you do need to be realistic. So budget is very important, but then we'll move on to what's achievable within that budget. So they're kind of tied together in a way, but don't under budget. If you do, you're at risk of limiting yourself afterwards. I would strongly advise, or we would strongly advise, paying everyone, even if it's just a little bit, and obviously get them to sign contracts. When you come to distribute your film and sell to sales agents and the like, they will require something called a chain of title, which is essentially all of your documentation. One big area of this is contracts. If you don't have a contract signed by all of your cast and crew, you're at serious risk of not being able to sell your film, because no one else wants to take the risk that you didn't actually ask someone properly or pay someone properly to be in your film. And you're also then at the mercy of people who essentially don't owe you anything. If you don't get your contract signed up front prior to shooting, potentially you could do the shoot and then an actor or a crew member might suddenly start to demand more money. We've been very lucky that that hasn't really happened to us, but we have heard horror stories from other filmmakers who, when you're at the end of the process, you're very skint, your money's all gone, and then to have someone come back and basically hold you for ransom for your film is not a situation you want to be in. So get all your contracts signed when everyone's friends and happy, and get it out the way.
And we'd also advise in regards to contracts is pay everyone a flat fee. So essentially no royalties, no back end on that, because as we've learned with low budget films, especially the first one, the chances of you making any profit on that to even make your money back is amazing. But to make any profit from that to then share it out to people, it's very unlikely to happen. And again, it can cause tension. We've heard stories from other filmmaker friends that we've got where they've done, maybe not necessarily paid people anything. Everything they've signed is for back end stuff, saying, oh, well, when the film sells, you'll get profits. The film sells, but the filmmaker doesn't make any money from it. But then all the cast and crew's like, well, it's on DVD, where's my money? And it's very hard unless you've been through this process as a filmmaker. The actors and the crew don't know that you've not made any money, because to them it looks like you have. And that's it's part of the illusion of filmmaking, which ultimately you have to create. You have to create this illusion of success, especially when you're getting your film out there and you're promoting it, but you might not necessarily be making any money. So be really careful about signing contracts. And that goes for locations as well and things like that. But do budget for post-production festivals. It's a good idea if you can to go through your kind of ideal goals. So for us, it was like Fright Fest, Screen Fest, Toronto After Dark. Look at how much they cost and go, right, we need to save that money. But you also need to consider, do I need to pay for a Vimeo Pro account to host the HD screener that I'm going to send through Film Freeway? Do I need to make Blu-ray copies to send? Things like this. It's hard to know those costs until you've been through the whole process. Do some research, see if you can find that stuff out, because you don't want to be then begging for money from family and friends when the time comes. Don't waste loads of money on equipment. Do what you can on the cheap. We used a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, £100 slider, some £30 lights from Amazon that take AA batteries. You know the ones. A £20 smoke machine from Aldi that was on sale. Again, we've sold the film. It's on sale in 10 countries, and we shot it on a Blackmagic Pocket, which does maximum 1080p. And also food. Food's the most important thing. I'm sure Paul will talk a bit more about that later, but feed everyone. Don't just get slices of ham and 2 pieces of white bread and give that for lunch. Feed people hot food. Feed people food you'd want to be given on a film set, especially if you're not paying anyone. Food is essential because it really boosts the morale and it makes people forget that they're working really long hours. Is it achievable? And this is very specific to you personally. So we had to consider, is it achievable for us? So the first part of that is when you're writing the script, like only write what you know you can achieve. And Paul, I'll let you talk a bit more about that.
There's two major areas where scripting can let you down on a low budget feature film. You can either go into it and do something that I'll call kind of writing too big, which involves writing effects or locations or just writing a story which has so much in it that you can't possibly achieve it on your budget level or with the timescale that you have. The problem with writing too big is that you either omit it during the shooting process, so you get rid of it, which then causes holes in your script potentially, or you attempt to do it anyway on the cheap and you end up with arguably laughable effects or laughable kind of props or locations. So you can course correct too much the other way and then write too small, which then ends up stripping away all of the luxury, all of the elements that are enticing and entertaining, whether that be props, action sequences, or locations. If you strip too much of that away, you can accidentally strip away all the drama as well and the intrigue. So you do need to push yourself, but you do need to be realistic. It's quite a fine balance. We were lucky because we looked at the resources we had around us and what was achievable. So we knew the majority of this film would need to be shot in locations we could access freely. But I just moved house at the time and I had a fairly big kitchen area. So we set all of the downstairs locations in that area. Stuart was living in a flat at the time and had a bedroom location that we could use. So we utilised that. And working with Glass Cannon, we shared a basement office, which the guys from Glass Cannon were on board for letting us turn into this weird, creepy underground lair for the monster and also a laboratory for our main protagonist. So we knew we had those nailed down. And then we went for the kind of fancy location.
So the Arctic Corsair is a museum ship in Hull, which is quite local to us. So we built contact with the museum staff there. They were very happy to let us use it. So we had that for, I think, 2 days, which had a bridge, it had an engine room, it had a deck. We got some cool views of the River Humber. And it just added to that production value. Look at what's near you and see how can that be integrated into your script. See what you can get for free. A lot of things you can get for free if you just ask. If you can do a bit of a deal where you might promote that location, you might make a little video for them. Ultimately, with things like museums and parks and things, a lot of people, depending on what you're doing, will welcome the promotion of you featuring that in your film. Another thing to consider is visual effects. We had a giant Cthulhu type monster in our film, which could only be done, at least as far as we knew, with CGI. So we had a fantastic guy called Jeff Blythe came in, did some amazing visual effects for us on that. when you're considering your film, think about, do you need them, and can you do them? Are they achievable?
Time is another big factor as well. So we were very conscious that we only had kind of weekends, and we took a little bit of time off work. We were able to make sure that all the actors and crew were available for those days as well, but potentially not for all of them. So we did have to kind of drop into other roles as well as the shoot went on, just to get over the finish line.
So once you've considered those three main things, marketability, your budget, and achievability, you go into production on your film. The scheduling, again, having a 9-to-5 full-time job, scheduling was so important to us. So we essentially booked 2 weeks off work. Paul and I were both working at the same place, which was quite convenient. So we both booked 2 weeks off, and we had a 14-day block shoot. And then to kind of pick up the extra time, we had 2 weekends after that as well.
We also kept things simple from a casting point of view. So we had 3 main cast who part of the process of casting them was making sure that they were free when we needed them. And we got 3 amazing cast members. And then we got 3 day players. Now, the day players are people who come onto a production only for a day. You want to use them as smartly as you can. And scheduling is your kind of key to doing this. So we had 3 people who just only came on for different days, individual days, but we shot scenes with them peppered throughout the whole script. So their character appears to be a much more integral role to the story. So they pop up every now and again throughout the story. And it's a very tried and tested and good way to bolster up the feel of the film, that you have more cast, you have more interactions, when actually the cost of it is reduced significantly, because you don't have to pay for lots of travel expenses, lots of train fares and such. A lot of our cast, in fact, doubled up as crew as well. Dan Smythe, who is our kind of main love interest in the film, was actually an amazing crew member as well. He doubled up as a fight coordinator, and he also was a runner, driver, someone who was able to, keep morale boosted on set. And we had crew triple up as other crew members as well. So you'll see a shot there of Stuart was actually on camera because unfortunately Cal couldn't make it one day. The shoot had to continue, so we had to step into different roles. I acted primarily as first AD on the film, which was probably the first time I've done this. And that was great and fine because I was able to keep a kind of track of things and make sure that the schedule that Stuart had put together was running to on time. But this only worked because we treated everyone well and there was a real kind of family pulling together feel to it.
Another key thing, and this links back to what sales agents and distributors want, but also leans into the marketability factor, is always shoot behind the scenes video and always shoot behind the scenes photos. So Alex Woodcock, who did our original concept poster for The Dark Below, he came on board, and all the photos you'll see in this presentation we'll be putting up on screen now. He took all of those. Film festivals ask for those. You'll want them in press releases. They'll help for your behind the scenes documentaries. We made a behind the scenes making of film that's almost, I think, 40 minutes long for The Creature Below. It's on the American DVD release. But do make sure you get all that video, get all the photos, and don't just have a mate who's got a phone taking pictures. Get a proper photographer in. And that's really integral to getting stills as well. You always get asked for stills, and what those are is, it's not a screen grab from your editing software of the film. You want to get a photographer in there for when you've got those key moments that you're shooting, and then go, oh, this looks really cool. Move the camera away, get the photographer in, and use the lighting setup that's there. Use the actors in there in character and get some really good high quality photos there. And we kind of evolved that process for Book of Monsters, having learned lessons on this one, and you'll see the result of that later, where we were able to get film festivals to use our photos as their advertisements for the whole film festival, which was really amazing. Linking back to this stuff, always get permission. Again, this kind of goes back to looking at locations and things like that, but wherever we filmed, whoever we got involved, we always had written permission down there. If you're filming locally, get local council permission, at least in the UK. I'm not sure how it works in the US, but get permission from any local authorities. And also, if you're doing anything that could be considered a criminal activity by the general public, inform the police, inform local businesses, and try and inform the local public if you can. So we drove with a Land Rover up to the Humber Bridge which is a big river with a bridge across it, loads of people there, ice cream trucks, little kids, and the character Olive is opening the boot of her car where there's loads of body parts wrapped in plastic sheets. We obviously called the police beforehand. We kind of informed people around what we were doing, because I'm sure if a little old lady had been walking her dog past and seen a car boot full of body parts, especially because we had quite a small camera at the time, it might not be apparent to people that we're filming. And we've heard horror stories, and in fact we know people who have had armed police rushing in because they've got a fake gun or they've got a fake arm or something like that. So do be so careful, but always get permission.
One thing that we did, which we were really proud of, and I'm still very proud of, is the fact that we, generally speaking, kept to a 9 to 5 day on the shoots. We knew that we would be working people fairly hard and fairly consistent. So we wanted to treat people well. And I think that's the absolute most important thing to do. When you can't afford to pay the cast and crew as much as you would like, it's really important that you do treat them well and you give them a good experience.
And that's the key thing, is don't waste anyone's time, because whilst you want those very passionate people around you who want the same thing as you to get this film out there, it's still your film at the heart of it, and no one's going to be as passionate as you. So while you might be thinking, oh, let's just stay up till 4 a.m. getting it done, other people want to go home and they want to go to bed. So do keep that in mind. So once we'd finished production on the film, we went into post-production, which for The Creature Below was actually mainly me doing the editing and the colour grading. So one of the things that we did factor into the budget was, can we afford an editor and a colorist? Ultimately, no. We kind of prioritised the cast and crew on production and the locations. So luckily my kind of background was editing, so I kind of took that on board. And the side benefit of that is that being the director of the film as well, and one half of the producing team, I was like one of the most motivated people. So I was able to kind of come home after work and continue editing the film into the wee hours of the morning, which kind of helped get it done on time. But that's not to say that we didn't put money into post-production. So we did consider the music and the sound design as one of the key things, which it is on a low budget independent film. If you can have good sound for a start, but then really good sound design and music, it can really elevate the whole rest of the film. We got Dave Walker on board, who's done both our features actually. He did a lot of our shorts as well. He also did some fantastic sound design on there as well. So all the creature sound effects and things like that to give it quite a Lovecraftian, creepy Lovecraftian mood. So yeah, don't skimp on your post-production. It is an important area, but again, we chose to make a compromise in that area for editing. I'm sure if we got a professional editor, it would have been much better. But ultimately, we couldn't afford it. So we did what we could do. And it will help you if you are kind of not necessarily a film student, but someone who's quite a techie with your editing and things like that. It will help you, because there's a lot of the later stages in post-production when you have to start making deliverables for sales agents and files for festivals. If you do know how Adobe Premiere works and After Effects and things, DaVinci Resolve, it's really going to benefit you. So it's worth learning those things. And that really, the deliverables that you want to think about making, again, we didn't know any of this stuff going in. We only learned that when sales agents started talking to us and they went, oh, have you got all these things? And we were like, what? So like kind of there's a brief list of deliverables there on the slide. Master files, ProRes 422HQ, they all want 23.976 frames per second video. And this was our biggest screw up, was that we shot in 25 frames per second, which is kind of the UK PAL standard, but for cinemas and film festivals and also NTSC North America releases, they all want 23.976 or 24. So we kind of had to do a lot of post-production things to the film you don't really want to be doing to get it to that frame rate. You also want to be thinking about your audio delivery. And again, this is why we're getting a good sound designer involved is key, because they don't just want your stereo mix, they want a 5.1 mix. But then for both of those mixes, they want separate tracks that, 5.1 tracks that just have dialogue on, just have effects, and then just have music. These things, again, we had no idea about, but luckily we had a good sound designer. He was able to split those up. You need to be able to have at the end of it your digital cinema package, which is a file you create to show it in a cinema on a cinema server. There are ways to do that now for free on DaVinci Resolve and DCP-O-Matic and various bits of software, which again, we could probably talk about in a whole other video. But at the time, no idea how to do it, very complicated, and we screwed it up several times. And as Paul mentioned earlier, you want your contracts and all your permissions in place for your chain of title documentation. You need to have insurance. You need to register the film for copyright for America. You have to register your script and the film itself for copyright. I think we could do a whole other video on deliverables and what you need to consider, but that's kind of just a brief idea of all the things you kind of need to consider there.
So the fun part, you've finally made your film and delivered your film, is going to film festivals, and it really is fun. It's brilliant. The best thing about it for me is to celebrate with the cast and crew. We took everyone along to the Creature Below screening. It was, just an amazing experience. You can see us there at Fright Fest. Fright Fest is the biggest genre and horror film festival in the UK. We were incredibly lucky to get on their First Blood strand, which was for first-time filmmakers. The Creature Below did really well, and we kind of had a lot of people turn out for that screening. A lot of it was our cast and crew. We actually utilised it as our premiere as well, but you can see us there. We all got a bit dressed up and enjoyed the red carpet and things. The real benefit, though, of film festivals is it allows you to get your film out there to the wider public, but that will only happen, or you will only be able to capitalise on that, if you make a good press release. Now, there's so many things to learn during the process, but a press release is really, really important. And the best way to describe this is it's what all of the article writers for whether it's horror websites or magazine publications will use as their kind of primary source material to write up an article, whether it's about the film or about the filmmakers or whatever. So your press release is really important. The better your press release can be, with publicity shots, with details about the cast and crew and the story behind the film, if you like, the better, because ultimately what you're trying to do is do someone's job for them. Article writers are very, very busy people and have lots of articles to write. If you can give them a really good, slick press release that they can kind of copy and paste a lot of it and throw in their own words, that really helps them. And if you help them, they're going to want to talk to you again. If you make allies there, they'll come back to you time and time again. And we're again very fortunate. We were able to make great connections with The Creature Below, which we took further with Book of Monsters. Going to a film festival in itself is fantastic publicity. Even if your film isn't received particularly well, it will still go down well that you've been at a big festival or even smaller festivals. And it legitimizes your film in everyone's mind. There are thousands of feature films that get made a year. This will help you stand out. So it's worth putting your money on. It's always a risk. There was no guarantees we would get into Fright Fest. It does help if you get into a big film festival, because then the smaller film festivals come to you and ask if you want to be involved. Amazing for networking. We've met not only sales agents and distributors and more business people, but you also get to meet other filmmakers. And that's where in my opinion, the real kind of usefulness to your career and your growth can come in.
So press release for us was a key thing that actually got us attention for sales agents and distributors. What a lot of them do is they look at big festivals like Fright Fest and see what new films are out there. They'll go on your IMDb, they'll Google you, and they'll go, oh, is this film sold? What's it about? Let's have a look at the trailer. What's the poster look like? All those things that we were talking about early on about the marketability. With the press release, obviously, film festivals put out their own press release because they announce their lineup. So Fright Fest will say, this year we're going to have these amazing films, and then we've got this, this, and this. But you put out your own press release that says, The Creature Below, Lovecraftian horror, The Creature Below premieres at Fright Fest. You make your own film screening its own big deal. And what happened there is, I think we got a few articles on Dread Central. The Horror Channel put up some amazing stuff for us. And as Paul said, making friends is great here, build up those contacts. But the distributors saw our articles, and we got so many emails from people asking to see screeners and things like that. And now we were finally ready. Whereas before, when we just sent out the poster and it was kind of like, oh, what's this film? And we're like, oh yeah, we haven't made it yet, but you're interested, great. We're able to go back to those people, and the same people came to us this time. We got new people involved, and Fright Fest was amazing for that because it is the one that they all watch. It's one that definitely, if you're making a horror feature in the UK or anywhere, you should aim for Fright Fest, because not only is it fantastic publicity for your film, the actual festival experience is amazing. The organisers are really good, and everyone who goes there, really supportive, really nice. We had a great reception to Creature Below, and again, we're perfectly willing to admit it's not the best film in the world. It's our first feature. It was really us learning how to do stuff. We got some amazing feedback from other filmmakers there. We made friends for life now who we've since gone on to work with a lot of these people. So valuable that you get into film festivals. But again, remember your press releases, because that's going to be a key thing for you, and publicize the hell out of that. You can win awards at these things, or you don't win awards at these things. For Creature Below, I think we won one award at a film festival for special effects, which was awesome, and it's kind of a testament to our effects team. We didn't really win many awards on this one. We did on Book of Monsters, which is great. Ultimately, the weird thing about it is awards don't matter, and to a certain degree, having loads of festival laurels doesn't matter as well. Something like Fright Fest being a big festival, I'd say, has a lot more weight to it. So we've had some of our releases have put Fright Fest laurels on the disc cover art. Distributors and sales agents don't care too much about awards, because we won lots of awards for Book of Monsters, and no one's put that it won Best Film at New York City Horror Film Festival, or it won Best International Feature at Spooky Empire. Anything like that. It doesn't really matter. They're just really nice for you. They kind of validate you personally. They're good for your ego, obviously. They might be good to kind of publicity, but ultimately don't worry too much about it, and don't think that just because you've not won any awards, your film's not good. That's not true at all.
The one thing that's worth having in your back pocket as well when you attend film festivals is your next idea. When we got talking with everyone at film festivals, they always ask about the film, and then straight away the next question is, what are you working on next? And this is where we fell down, unfortunately. This is something that we were so wiped out by the process of going through Creature Below. We just didn't have anything. And we missed an opportunity to capitalize on the success of the film. It's not the end of the world if you haven't got it, obviously, but it is something to think about. Always be planning your next film. Certainly with your first film, you can have a feeling that you've now climbed the mountain, you've made it, and actually there's just more mountains to come. You just need to make the next film and be ready. A lot of people potentially will make their first film. Not that many people go on to make their second film. So even the first film is just a testament. People are still waiting to see where you're going to go next.
And that kind of leads into going fishing for distributors and sales agents. So as I've said, your press release, at least in our experience, it may be different for other people, the press release really helped that outside of film festivals, but distributors do send representatives to film festivals for acquisitions. It happens like Nightmares Film Festival in the USA. We were lucky enough to get Book of Monsters in there, and they were promoting the fact that they had people coming from various places, which is amazing. A lot of distributors will kind of go in secret and they won't make it known, but you can kind of see this festivals do get sponsored by distributors as well. Keep an eye out for that, because that kind of means they're keeping an eye on what's going on there. Ultimately, it links back to those three parts of the marketability we talk about: poster, trailer, logline. We're not going to go into film markets and cans and things like that, but ultimately those are the three things that are going to draw in people to actually go to a screening of your film. And the same goes for film festivals. You've been to film festivals, your film's finished, you're celebrating. Now, for us, we got a sales agent. The difference between a distributor and a sales agent are, a sales agent, much like an agent for an actor, is they're going to represent your film. They're going to take it to distributors and try and sell it. So they might take it to the Cannes film market, to AFM, to Berlin, and they will do all of the sales pitches for you. So they'll be wooing distributors, trying to get you some sales. A distributor is the one who actually puts out the film on either DVD, Blu-ray, video on demand, or puts it in the cinema, things like that directly. You can sell your film directly to them and negotiate the deal, do all the contract. However, a sales agent, especially for your first film, this is the advice we would give at least, you don't know any of that stuff. You don't know what a good deal is. You don't know the terms of contracts. And a sales agent, whilst it's always a risk getting a sales agent because they're varying degrees of quality, they will try and sell your film because ultimately they want to make money from your film. So they will get it out there. They know the market as well. They'll know how to market your film. So with The Creature Below, it was originally called The Dark Below. They wanted to, our sales agent said, look, let's rename it The Creature Below because I know that it will draw more people in. It's obvious it's a monster movie with a creature element to it. They know how to sell the film in terms of the actual content. So they might suggest changes to the edit that will help it sell in other markets. So for Creature Below, we reshot the ending to the film, actually. It was quite a slow burn ending originally, and our sales agent said, look, we'll sell in Asian markets much better if you have a scene at the end where a giant monster comes out the sea. Obviously we were like, oh, it doesn't really fit our thing. the story we're trying to tell, but we were open to it. We're open to learning. We did change it, and we actually sold in the Asian markets and got some good money from that area. It did work. What they said paid off. And again, sales agents, they have a direct line to the distributors already. Like, you could approach distributors and say, hey, we've got a film, but ultimately they don't know who the hell you are. You're unproven at this stage on your first feature film. A sales agent will already have that connection. They'll already be whining and dining these distributors. They can also sell your film as part of a package. So with Creature Below, we know that they kind of take our film to various distributors with 10 other films, and they go, hey, you can get all of these for a certain amount of money on a deal. It really increases the chance of your film getting out there. And for us, that links back to our main reason is we want exposure. A sales agent was the best choice for us on our first film, and it probably will be for you, but do your research beforehand. Don't just jump at the first deal you get offered. The main thing to consider is they are all sharks. They're all businessmen. They're all out to make profit. Your film is a product that can sell. You're the creative person here, and if you've got a creative idea that they can sell, they're going to do it any way they possibly can, and they will try and take advantage of you, especially if you're a first-time filmmaker. You don't know about percentages and residuals and expenses and marketing fees and all this stuff. It's your first film. You need to learn by going through this process, weirdly enough, and that's what we did. We learned all the pitfalls. We learned about all these crazy terms that we'd never heard about MGs, minimum guarantees, and all this stuff. You don't know unless you do it, but ultimately for us, it helped get the film out there. With a sales agent, you are making a deal with the devil in a way. It's a big trade-off, but it got our film out there. Creature Below is available in 10 territories now, I think, since it came out in 2016. As you can see, the artwork ranges wildly differently for each territory. Germany thankfully used our original title and artwork of The Dark Below, which is, in our opinion, more representative. But then you've got the Japanese artwork, which looks like it has Godzilla on it attacking a submarine. Again, the distributor and the sales agent knows that's going to sell better in that market. One thing that we know from experience talking to other filmmakers, and a trap you could fall into, is you can be too precious. Don't be, at least for us. And again, everything we're saying in this whole talk is, this is what we did. You might not want to do the same thing, but in getting our first film out there for exposure, we weren't precious. And we even joked that they're going to take our poster and it'll be a woman in a bikini with a giant monster attacking New York. And then you look at the USA and Canadian artwork, and it is a woman in a bikini with Brooklyn Bridge in the background with a giant monster that looks nothing like our monster. But it sold really well. So we can't really argue with that.
In a way, that this validates the process for us as well. This was a learning curve. It's no coincidence that our second film is called Book of Monsters, because we realized that, okay, having a creature in the Creature Below rather than the Dark Below allowed us to capitalize and sell to people directly because they knew what they were getting, essentially. So you can learn through the decisions of other people. If you are precious and if you are stubborn, you're potentially limiting yourself. Ultimately, there's a lot of first-time filmmakers out there, and there is a lot of products, so you do have to play their game a little bit. However, as the slide says, really read the contracts. Ideally, if you can afford lawyers and things like that, great, do. We couldn't. We possibly signed a weaker deal for us because we didn't understand. Getting the minimum guarantees is extremely important, because you will often get sales agents telling you about how much money you're going to make on the back end, how much money you're going to make once it sells all around the world and everyone buys it on DVD and Blu-ray and blah, blah, blah. The reality that we've seen on 2 films now and talking to other filmmakers is there are no real residuals. There are no back ends. There is clever accounting and a lot of expenses that sometimes are hidden and sometimes not hidden. But all of this boils down to the fact that it's not really designed in the filmmaker. The contracts aren't written in the filmmaker's favor to allow for a lot of back end payments. So you're better to negotiate a minimum guarantee on the upfront costs. So if a sales agent's basically saying, look, we'll pay you $5,000 up front, but then you'll get 50% of every DVD sold and blah, 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 you're better to say, no, we want £1,000 up front, and you can forget about we'll take 20% on this imagined back end that never really gets to you.
So with Creature Below, again, we sold it to a sales agent. We kind of made the changes they wanted. We were perfectly willing to accept the name change, the poster change. It came out in the USA and Canada first, and it got out there, which was fantastic. And it kind of proves that, again, following the steps we took did work. However, the industry is changing all the time. This was 2016, and as we learned with Book of Monsters, things have changed slightly. So the biggest difference now from the short film world is obviously you can still send your short films out for review and things like that, but feature films are going to be watched by everyone and their mother, especially with the advent of streaming and accessibility and review sites like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. Again, at this stage, you should be sending out copies or at least screeners for people to review. And a lot of sales agents or distributors will actually send review copies out anyway. So if you can liaise with them to try and plan this, that's good. But for us, we were like, okay, we need to get Dread Central to review it and Blood Disgusting and various places. So we sent out there and we did get some great reviews, some positive stuff, people who knew what we were going for. And you can stick that on all your marketing material. I think I made this on Photoshop to kind of promote the USA release. And again, what you will find is the distributor probably won't promote the film as much as you want them to, but there's no reason you can't be promoting it as well. So do promote it. And again, if you can talk to them, we had fantastic success with Book of Monsters. Some of the distributors on that, we were able to liaise with them and actually plan a bit of a marketing campaign together, which was really good. So we got it out there, but also whilst you will get some great critic reviews, you will also get some IMDb reviews from users who are just watching it. And that's where we got some fantastic reviews, 1-star reviews of our film from people who just found it and watched it, people we didn't know. For your first film and the first time you experience this, you can take this in multiple ways. For me personally, I was initially really upset and I had to learn to deal with criticism from people I'd never met. It's obviously, it's hard enough getting criticism from like an actual critic or a reviewer on a website who you respect, who's like, look, I didn't like it, but at least that's on a very professional level and you can go, oh, well, thank you anyway for getting a review out there. But then you go on IMDb and people have just found it and they hate your film, they hate you, they hate the people in it. And I really took that to heart initially and I got a bit depressed about it. And it took me a while before a good long while before I could look at those reviews and kind of laugh at them and go, very good, and take it on the chin, really.
I just laughed straight away. I think, as Stuart said, it's always hard to get kicked in the teeth, which essentially these reviews are. But it is, even though you're getting 1-star reviews, someone has gone out of their way to write that review. So regardless of that, someone has seen it and it's totally their opinion of whether it's good or bad. There are also nuggets of real notes within those criticisms as well. So you've got to read them all, even if you're reading through teary eyes behind a sofa. Read them because there are bits that you can go, yeah, that person's actually right. It was boring at this point, or there was a plot hole here. There's something that we can do better. And I mean, as much as it maybe took its toll on us, we picked ourselves back up and dusted ourselves down and then kind of took the notes from them and said, okay, well, how can we do better on the next one? And if you're constantly striving to learn and improve, these reviews are actually more valuable to you than a 5-star review because they're more useful. You've got to get resilient to it. You've got to check your ego at the door. Throughout the whole process, your ego is not your friend. It will stop you from making connections. It will stop you from improving. And yeah, a 1-star review will do great things for getting you rid of your ego.
So really, we got the film out there and it got out and it was a great experience. Like we finally, that original goal that me and Paul set out to do of, okay, I want to walk into HMV, which is a high street chain in the UK. I want to be able to pick it up and buy it. We were able to do that, and we were able to do that in multiple countries, actually. We, again, never went into it with any illusion we'd make loads of money or be able to quit our day job. It would have been nice if we could have. But ultimately, yes, we probably made the budget back on the first film. But for a bit of a reality check for anyone out there who's got a really good idea for their 12 grand movie, you're probably not going to make enough money to quit your day job. So don't quit your day job yet. At least is the advice we would give. After Creature Below got out there, we were probably in about, released in 2016, we were already going, okay, everyone's asking us what we're doing next. We need to make something. And the main things that we need to consider with the second film was it needs to be better than the first film. Like, we need to show a progression. We need to show that we've learned those lessons. And that's not only for the audience, it's for the film festivals, it's for the reviewers and our network to go, oh, these guys are actually improving. So it had to be bigger and more ambitious, work to our strengths and learn from those previous mistakes. And yes, we made new mistakes on Book of Monsters because every film's a learning experience. It's only our second film, but we didn't make the same mistakes. And that's the key thing, is to, as Paul said, read the reviews, learn from your mistakes and do better. We went back to those original things: marketability, what's the budget, and is it achievable? The market is ever changing. About the time we started to make Book of Monsters, Stranger Things had kind of blown up. People love Stranger Things. 80s horrors having a bit of a revival. And we love that kind of stuff. We love Gremlins, Ghoulies, Critters. So we went in, much like we did with Creature Below, thinking about what the poster's going to be, thinking about what the trailer's going to be, and what's the log line going to be. The main thing is it had to be better than the first film. And that's something we focused all our efforts on. So Book of Monsters, unlike Creature Below, where we self-funded it, which was £12,000, we came up with a rough budget for Book of Monsters after working on the script and realised that we needed actually £45,000 to make it. We couldn't make it for anything less. We couldn't under budget this. It had to be that amount of money, but there was no chance in hell Paul and myself were going to be able to put in half each. We looked at Kickstarter. We'd seen a lot of other people like Hex Studios had done some amazing stuff with that. They've made some amazing like gothic horror creature films on it. And we thought, wow, like we should look at this seriously. But we didn't just jump in. And that is the mistake that a lot of people can make. And this is probably a whole other video we could do on Kickstarter, which I think we are going to do. Really plan your Kickstarter campaign, or if you do Indiegogo or any other thing, plan your crowdfund campaign like it is a feature film in itself. You want to go into pre-production, you want to script it, you want to plan it out, you want to schedule it. With Book of Monsters, what we ended up doing was a proof of concept trailer in the style of an old 80s horror film trailer. So it had a cheesy American voiceover. We kind of set up the plot of the film, but then we bring in our unique gimmick. And I think this is one of the things that really connected with the horror audience, is we had a gimmick where if you back the Kickstarter campaign, you could vote on which 6 monsters would be in the film and like 5 other elements. So we had like choose the horrible death, choose the mysterious birthday present, and all of these things we would write into the script. So by putting money into the film, not only did you get your perk like a Blu-ray or a t-shirt or something, you also got an input on the plot. And we did that through a voting system. But the key thing is that we spent, myself and Paul, put in about £1,500 just to make this video. We rented a studio space. We got the actors in that we'd already cast. So it was almost like a bit of a screen test proof of concept for the whole film as well. We were able to kind of get them all involved. We shot the proof of concept whilst at the same time in a second studio. We were doing all the promo photography. We were doing all the behind the scenes videos. We planned out the whole campaign so that at certain stages we had more video content to put up, because if the campaign was going to run for 2 weeks, we had to have stuff every day that was new and engaging. Because with crowdfunding, it's very hard to time when you're going to do them because people get paid at different times. You've got to really kind of keep building that interest. So, I mean, it's the same for me. I'll see crowdfunds where I'm like, oh, I don't really have enough money for that, and they haven't quite enticed me, but then they'll put out some additional content or a video, or they'll get someone involved that I'm like, oh, now I'm interested. So that's something you've got to plan for all the way through to that last day.
Everything you put out there is a representation of the film and you guys as filmmakers. So what we wanted to make sure was it wasn't just me and Stuart sat in front of a white background going, please give us your money. We've made a film before. It needed to be slick. It needed to, every single element, the promotional stills, the graphics, the artwork, everything had to all fit together, which it really was like a feature film in its own right. And you're doing all of this on the hope that you'll then get to make the feature film. Kickstarter or any crowdfunding campaign, you're basically setting up a contract with every member of the public who's going to back your film to say, yes, we are legitimate. We aren't going to waste your money. We are going to get over the finish line and get this film out there. So you've got to prove that to them. And the best way to do that is during the campaign itself. Luckily, we were successful, so we were able to go into production. And at the time, we were actually the third most backed horror in the UK, which was a great achievement for us. And it was 15th most backed horror in the world, which on Kickstarter. So that in itself became its own little selling point for the movie going forward. So we had a unique Kickstarter, we had a unique edge to the Kickstarter, and it had this kind of success already before going into production, that we were the third biggest backed horror in the UK.
We do get asked a lot, like I get asked loads, like, oh, I'm going to do a Kickstarter for my film, what do I need to do? We went, okay, what have other people done that are making the same type of thing we've done? Let's look at their campaigns, let's look at the press out there, use Google, like you look on the campaign, study what worked, look at the perks that sold the most. You've just got to do your research because the information is already out there. And sadly, like, there is a tendency to cheap out on the Kickstarter. You really need it to be good. And a lot of advice we've given is, as Paul said, don't just film you like this on a webcam going, please give money. It's a really exciting film. We've got these people involved. It's like, you've not shown me that you can make it. Like, make a proof of concept trailer, make even some sort of concept there. With Kickstarter, you've got to be aware that you can choose to set it as an all or nothing campaign. I think Kickstarter still is just all or nothing, whereas Indiegogo lets you, you can keep whatever funds you get. Be careful with that, because the reason we did Kickstarter for £45,000 is we knew that was the minimum budget we needed to make the film. If we didn't make the target, we weren't going to make it, full stop, which again is a big risk. But had we done something like Indiegogo, where it was a flexible goal and we'd only made £10,000, that would have been bad, because we couldn't have made the film we set out we were promising to make. This is your reputation on the line. So had we not made the Kickstarter money, yeah, it would have been really disappointing, but ultimately we weren't letting anyone down because we hadn't put anything on the line. So do be very careful about that. Another thing to consider is what I talked about when we were talking about film festival marketing. This all, again, use your network, do your press releases. The trick with Kickstarters is a lot of the horror websites we went to were a bit reticent to actually share them, because in their eyes, once they share one Kickstarter, why aren't they sharing everyone's Kickstarter? So really, they don't like to do that. But again, because we had the unique hook, because we had the previous connections with them, people were more willing to do that. And that really helped us out. And as Paul said, get contacts to tweet them out. We got Fright Fest festival directors to tweet them out. We got other more experienced filmmakers than us to tweet it out. Whilst Paul kind of mentioned that it did help that we had a previous film, but it wasn't huge. Bizarrely enough, some of the biggest backers we had were people who'd been to Fright Fest, seen our first film, but we'd never actually spoken to them or met with them. And regardless of how well your opinion might be of our first film or how well it did, the fact that, again, we got into Fright Fest, that they'd heard about it because our publicity and our marketing had worked, it legitimized us. Oh, they've made a film. Oh, it's on DVD in different countries. Oh, so they can deliver. And this is why I said earlier that maybe don't do Kickstarter for your first film, because you don't have that proof there's no proof in the pudding, so to speak. There's no evidence you can deliver it. With the first film done, we were able to do that with Book of Monsters, and hopefully we'd probably be able to do that again. And there are other people who their whole funding structure is Kickstarter, because they've made fantastic films every time and they're able to deliver every time. So it's something to consider. Don't just dive in. Don't take the risk if you're not ready. So with Book of Monsters, I won't really talk too much about the production of that, because it was very similar to Creature Below. We took time off work to do it. We treat people right. We paid more money for food this time on the catering budget. Really, again, learn from the lessons, learn from what worked, don't do what didn't work. Ultimately, from the first day of shooting the Kickstarter, exactly 1 year later, we premiered at Fright Fest, which was fantastic. It was harder to get into Fright Fest the second time round. We had the benefit the first year of the First Blood strand being around for first-time filmmakers. We were no longer first-time filmmakers. We were being judged on the same level as every other film going in. And I know for a fact it was quite hard. It was a challenge, but thankfully we had some good contacts on our side who really were supportive and gave our film a chance. And as you can see, Book of Monsters, our three leading ladies there, Lindsay, Michaela and Lizzie, are on the Fright Fest poster, which was up in Leicester Square outside the Prince Charles Cinema. And this is just proof of that marketability and your marketing materials. We had the behind-the-scenes photographer on set. We had the behind-the-scenes video. We got some amazing artwork, and they were willing to put that front and center on the Fright Fest poster in front of Andy Nyman and Martin Freeman and Yvonne Strahovski behind there, who were way bigger names and way more famous. And, I'm sure those films that people were dying to see. But because our artwork was cool and it had women with chainsaws on, it worked. So, yeah, think about your marketing. And those photos that we took on the Kickstarter, the images of the 3 girls holding the weapons, we took that on the Kickstarter. That's not even from the film, and that's made it all the way to the final DVD releases, which is fantastic. So again, focus on poster, trailer, logline, photos, all your marketing stuff. So important. It really is. But ultimately, again, we courted sales agents and distributors a second time round, with now knowing the mistakes we made the first time around, knowing that how to get a better deal. We did get better deals. It got out there. This film, unlike the first film, got on Sky Cinema, which in the UK is kind of the big satellite digital TV network, which is amazing visibility for us, which again, linking back to our original goal, is exposure. We want to get it out there. Book of Monsters got out there even more, but we couldn't have done any of that without all of that considerations: marketing, achievability, budget. It's the 3 things you just got to go back to.
So for us going forward, it's always been about playing the long game. This really is a marathon, not a sprint. We're 2 films in now. We've learned a lot of lessons, but I'm sure we've got a lot more mistakes still to make. We don't really want to kind of rush the process, and I would recommend that to anyone. Try and make sure your script is ready. Try and make sure that all your elements are in place before you rush headline into it. However, don't get stuck just trying to make everything perfect. We had deadlines that we knew we had to hit, and it was one of those 3 things. As far as achievability, we knew we could take time off in summer because we work in jobs that allow for that to happen. Therefore, we had a deadline, so we had to stick to it. Kickstarter and doing the Book of Monsters through crowdfunding and that route gave us another deadline. We didn't want to just keep things dragging on forever and ever, because we had people waiting for that film. So don't rush, but once you're in production, don't slow down. You need to get over the finish line as well. And learn from those mistakes. As we've said many times before, they are the best lessons you can get. The best film school you'll ever get is making those mistakes firsthand. Make sure you do get the right people around you. I can't stress that enough. We have only made any degree of success because of the people around us. If we didn't have those passionate people with us every step of the way, you're nothing really. You can't really make films like this on your own. And then there's the flip side of that. You do need to distance yourself from the negative people. We've been lucky that we've not had anyone come on to our projects that's derailed it, but it could happen. But even the negative kind of press and the snide comments that people make online and stuff like that, you've got to laugh it off. You've got to just put that negativity to one side. The best piece of advice that I was given was, don't worry about the opinions of people who you would never seek advice from. So if it's amazing, if it's your most perfect filmmaker that's telling you your film's rubbish, then okay, like, take that on board. If it's some guy in a basement somewhere that's never really made a movie in his life telling you that his film's rubbish, they're still your fan base. You've still got to listen, but you don't have to concern yourself too much, really. Some people do like to just be negative. Prepare yourself for serious sacrifice of your personal time. I'll let Stuart talk about this in a moment, because the efforts that he went through to edit both of our movies is heroic in itself, really, giving up all of his spare time. But that was true of everyone on the shoot, really. And certainly if it is your project, you have to make those sacrifices. And those sacrifices look different to different people. I can't remember the last time we kind of went and sat in a pub or went to social gatherings and groups, and I've probably lost friends along the way because of that. But ultimately, you've got to have your goal in sight. Do you want to be a feature filmmaker? Therefore, you have to take those sacrifices.
It's hard because it's a true test of how bad you want it once you get into this kind of feature film realm, because ultimately, like I'm sure many people, I love playing video games, I like reading books, I like doing other things. Those things, as Paul said, had to go on the back burner. They had to play second fiddle to making films. So especially during post-production, because we worked 9 to 5 jobs, it's getting up at 6 a.m, to get to work for 9, finishing at 5, getting home around 7, and then just staying up till 2 in the morning, editing, or we were kind of doing scripts back and forth, things like that, and then to get up at 6 a.m. again. And that went on for a good year and a half on both films. And I missed out on a lot of things where, you know, people were like, oh, we're all meeting up. Do you want to come out? It's a birthday gathering, things like that. I had to kind of miss them to make sure we got stuff done. And the hardest period as well is when in between films, like, it's hard to be motivated. And that's again why people sometimes will make one feature film or two, but they'll never make the second or the third. And you've got to keep that motivation going. And it is a true test of how bad you want it. Because if you've got, especially after filming, you're exhausted, you don't want to look at the footage, and you had maybe a terrible experience, but ultimately every single person who worked on that film gave their time for you. And if you're there sat playing Xbox or PlayStation, when you could be editing that film, getting it into film festivals, helping further everyone's career, you're doing a huge disservice to them if you're not doing that. So you need to be pressing on, and that again will only strengthen those relationships with people because you're honoring the work that they've done. And consider, as Paul said, everyone who works on your film is giving up their time for you. Especially if you're not paying them much or anything at all. We've been so lucky to work with such amazing people who have again booked their own holiday time and given up their weekends to come and work on our stupid, crazy ideas about giant squids living in some woman's basement. You need to take that into consideration. You can't squander that. Sacrifice your time, but remember that you're asking other people to do it as well. So do right by them, and you'll be able to keep making films.
And this goes into that. Don't be an egomaniac. It's not about you. It's about everyone that's involved, and you have to do right by them. And if you don't, and you may find out during the process that you don't love movie making quite as much as you thought you did. You just like the idea of being a filmmaker, and that's fine. Like, if that's the case, probably best to find out early. But if hopefully you've gone through the rigmarole, you've gone through the trials and tests and still love the process, then you're probably going to make it. And you're probably, because you'll be focused on the process, you'll be focused on getting better, and that's what we're trying to do. So hopefully as part of that, we'll actually be trying to do more of these videos and trying to connect more with people and share more of our experiences as we go on and continue to learn the process.
Obviously, Book of Monsters was our last film that came out 2019, which is last year as of recording this video. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, as a lot of people were in at home a lot more, on the computer a lot more, and we thought that start making these videos. We've done this kind of presentation, you've seen this video, we've done as a more structured educational talk for university students, for college students in the UK. We thought it'd be useful to first-time filmmakers, or maybe people who are considering making their first film, just to show them what we've been through. And again, I have to stress, this is how we did it. You can do it in many different ways, but this is just going off our experience of making feature films and how we've sold them and got them out there. What's really exciting for us is we're going to take a step into distribution as well. But the main thing is, if you go on our website, you sign up to our newsletter, and what we're trying to build is a community of independent filmmakers where we can actually share resources. So if you sign up to our newsletter, you'll get access to a password protected page on our website called the Dark Rift Vault. And we're going to put videos like this on there. We're going to do a whole video on how to successfully run a Kickstarter, how to make your deliverables, your DCPs, questions that we wish we'd had the answers to when we were making our first feature film, because there is information out there, but it's hard. People aren't as candid as you'd like them to be when it comes to filmmaking, and we appreciate that from other filmmakers, and we want to help people with that. So regardless of what you think of our films, if you like them or not, we have sold them. We did achieve our goal of selling them on DVD, and we want to help other people do the exact same thing, because contrary to what some people might think sometimes, this is not a competition at all. We should all be supporting each other, because we want to keep building our network, building our contact with other filmmakers, and help other filmmakers have the same success we've had, as modest as it is, getting their films out there. So yeah, please head over to the website, sign up to our newsletter, get involved with us, get in touch with us. We're more than willing to help. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you've made it all the way through to the end, hope it's been helpful to some people. If there's certain aspects of it, like the Kickstarter or the deliverables or the sales agents and things like that, that you'd want to hear a dedicated video about, let us know, because we want to make more content that helps you out. So please just get in touch and give us some feedback.
Thank you, guys. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the next video.
Yep, see you soon.